before you start a fire. The most important thing that you want to do is preparation. The better you prepare, the better chance of success you have of getting a fire. If I were to get a coal right now, then have to run around and try to build a nest to be able to blow it into a flame, by the time I build a nest, what's going to happen to the coal? I just wasted all that time, right? Dang it. Okay, we've carved our spindle down to where we want it. We've got points on two ends. And the reason we've got points on two ends is our first task in starting a fire by friction is what is known as burning in. We need to create a hole in the fireboard so that our spindle stays in the same point. Now, one of the techniques that you can use to help the spindle spin faster is by using the oils from your face up against the sides of your nose, getting those oils on the spindle. It greases the spindle and allows less friction at the top, more friction at the bottom. Now, I'm going to get everything I need close to me so that I don't have to go looking for it. What I want to do is create a little divot in my fireboard so that my point, my spindle, has a place to settle. I'm not going to carve a hole. I want the spindle to do that for me. That way it's the exact same size and shape as the spindle, creating the most friction possible. Okay, the technique that we're going to use is the Egyptian technique, where we're going to wrap this string around the spindle more than once, like so. I'm going to put the fireboard underneath my left foot and my arch of my foot. I'm going to use my socket rock on top of my spindle, like so. This bow is the length of my arm from my armpit to my fingertips. The reason I have it so long is so that I can take long, gentle strokes to build up piles of ash. If you notice, I'm not going to sit back on this leg. I'm going to be up on this knee, and I'm going to have my arm wrapped around this leg and my wrist locked in against my shin. My foot is going to be close to the spindle so that I've got all my energy and pressure from my body weight pushing down on it. This allows me to exert the most amount of force and use the least amount of effort. Now, in order for this to start smoking, the spindle and the fireboard have to be rubbing together so fast and hard that it's creating a temperature of 700 degrees. What you want to do is get a pile of ash, and then you want to pick up this pace and push down a little harder to create that heat. You can see it doesn't take much to get it smoking when using the right technique. After I've burned in, what I want to do is create a notch so that all this ash I've created on the top here will actually fall into the notch, collect, and then the heat will be stored there. And that way it will start on fire. It'll create an ember or a coal by compacting and burning itself as fine powder. That wood bone saw that I told you about on these knives makes a great tool for cutting in this notch right here. And what happens is, if you use 2 saw blades wide or thick to cut a notch straight to the center of that hole from the opposite side here, it'll be the right thickness for that ash to fall through and gather. You notice I cut the notch all the way to the center of the hole that I burned out first. If your notch is too wide, then you have to collect incredible amounts of ash. It will lose all the heat as it falls out, and you'll have to create so much ash it'll take an incredible amount of time. If it's too narrow, it will gather around the top. If it's just right, it will fall in this notch and push out and collect here and keep all the heat. So getting that notch just right is very, very important. The reason I burn in first instead of cutting a notch and then trying to burn in is because if I cut a notch first, this hole will walk all over the place and it won't be to the center of that. So burn in first, then cut the notch. If it's too narrow, I need to cut in just a little bit more. If you don't have a saw or a knife with a saw, this is the technique you use. It's called an hourglass to carve your notch. And by bowling the bottom or the back like this a little, allows a place for that ash to gather a little more. But if you notice, there's an hourglass shape here, like that. Okay, these ends become polished, so they tend to squeak if you don't sharpen them again. Smoother it is, the less friction you're gonna have, right? And what are we trying to do? Fire by friction. So after every time you stop or you do this, you want to shave a little bit of this off so that it's fresh. You've got friction there, right? What we're trying to get at first is an ember or a coal. You want to put underneath something like a leaf or a piece of bark or something so that this ash that we're going to build up is caught on that. That way we can pick it up and dump it into our nest when we're done. Now, when the smoke is coming from this pile of ash here, that's when I know I have a coal. We're going to blow into the nest, which is the coal or ember, holding the nest together around it tightly but not smothering it, holding it with our fingertips and pulling it away from us, breathing off to the side, always holding the nest above you and away from you so that when you breathe, you're not breathing ash and you can turn your head and not breathe the smoke. With the wind to our back so that when we're not blowing, the wind is blowing on it for us. And there's our fire.